Dobrý den! Welcome to my favorite outdoor studio. Today we will talk about reflexive verbs. I've already talked about this topic some 2 years ago. I had a two-part video on verbs with se or si, and I divided into 6 categories. Today I will talk about specifically one category, and those are the verbs that exist both with se and si or without it, but their meanings change when you add the reflexive part to them. We will talk about 6 pairs of verbs and you will learn 18 phrases. Jdeme na to! Ahoj, vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. I'm a little ill, but I believe it will not get in the way of you understanding what I say. First, I want to go over these 6 verbs. First one is půjčit se or učit. Let's start with půjčit. Učit or naučit, the perfective version, means to teach, what I'm doing now. Já učím. Učit se. Se in this case means to yourself. You're teaching yourself. That means you're learning. So naučit se, učit se means to learn. I will not give you examples yet. We will keep that for later. Be patient. The second pair is hádat and hádat se. Hádat se means to argue, to have an argument, a verbal argument. Hádat, on the other hand, is very, very different. It means to guess. The third pair is cítit and cítit se. Cítit means to smell something. So, cítit. Cítit se, imagine that you're smelling yourself. That sounds awful, but maybe it will help you to remember that it's to feel. You talk about how you feel. And now let's move on to the verbs that have si. Let's start by půjčit and půjčit si, or their imperfective forms půjčovat, půjčovat si. It's also important to mention that a lot of Czechs usually don't pronounce the J, so they just say půjčit si. Even the U would be short. Půjčit si, půjčovat. It's the same verb, it's just a lazy pronunciation. So, půjčit means to lend something. Půjčit. Půjčit si is when you lend it to yourself, when you borrow it. So, půjčit, půjčit si. Our next pair is very similar to the previous one. Pronajmout or pronajímat and pronajmout si, pronajímat si. Pronajmout is when you lend something for money, so you rent it. Pronajmout si, you pay money and rent something from someone else. Pronajmout si. And the last verb is something that you probably know, dát and dát si. Also their imperfective form, dávat and dávat si. Dát is to give, and dát si means to give yourself. It's to have something, to order a meal. Usually we use this when we are at a restaurant and we order a drink or a meal, so we say dám si. But now let me show you the examples, how these verbs work in context. So this is what we are going to do. We will do this in the form of a very easy quiz. There will only be 2 options. On this side you will see an English phrase and then 2 possibilities of translating it into Czech. One of them is correct. Those sentences will be very similar. The only thing is that one will contain se or si, the other one won't, and you will have to choose which one is correct. So here's our first sentence. I want to say I was studying this for 3 hours, and we have 2 options. Which one is correct? I'll give you about 2 seconds to think about this, but if you want more time, just pause it right now. Option A is correct. Učila jsem se to 3 hodiny. Učila jsem se to 3 hodiny. So here I want to say I'm teaching only 1 lesson today. Option A is correct. Dneska učím jenom 1 hodinu. Dneska učím jenom 1 hodinu. Next sentence. This is a saying in Czech, a very important one. And option B is correct. Chybami se člověk učí. Chybami se člověk učí. Let's look at the verb cítit and cítit se. Can you smell it? Option B is correct. Cítíš to? Cítíš to? Next one. Option A is correct. Jak se cítíte, pane mladý? Jak se cítíte? Next sentence. And option B is correct. Cítím se skvěle na 20 let. Cítím se skvěle na 20 let. Now hádat and hádat se. If you are forgetting the difference, you might want to go back to the video and maybe make some notes if you haven't made them. So in this sentence, A is correct. Hádej, koho jsem potkal. A hádej, koho jsem potkal. Very common when you want to say guess what. Guess what happened? Hádej. Next sentence. And B is correct. The same meaning. Hádali jsme, kolik přijde lidí. Hádali jsme, kolik přijde lidí. And this sentence. B is correct. Už se nehádejte. Už se nehádejte. Now the verbs that can have si. Let's do dát and dát si. In this sentence, A is correct. Ještě jsme si nic nedali. Ještě jsme si nic nedali. Next sentence. B is correct. Tu tašku jsem ti dal ke dveřím. Tu tašku jsem ti dal ke dveřím. So ti and si are not the same. Si is reflexive to yourself or to oneself. Ti is to someone else, to you. And it's not reflexive. Next sentence. A is correct. Psovi dáváme žrádlo 2krát denně. Psovi dáváme žrádlo 2krát denně. Next sentence. It půjčit or půjčit si. Or půjčit. A is correct. Nepůjčila bys mi 100? Or nepůjčila bys mi 100? Because you're lending it to someone. Next sentence. B is correct. Můžu si půjčit tvoje tričko? Můžu si půjčit tvoje tričko? Next sentence. B is correct. Půjčujete tyhle knihy domů? Půjčujete tyhle knihy domů? And the last one. Pronajmout a pronajmout si. B is correct. Pronajímáme apartmány u moře. Pronajímáme apartmány u moře. Next sentence. A is correct. Pronajmeme si auto. Pronajmeme si auto. And the last sentence of this video. B is correct. Pronajali si pěkný byt. Pronajali si pěkný byt. Let me know your score in the comments. And if you want to practice this tiny bit more, you can also take this quiz online. You can find the link in the description or below the video in the comments. And you can also do more quizzes, which you will find on my website, such as quizzes on cases. To je ode mě všechno. Mějte se hezky a za týden na viděnou. Čau, čau.